Hey everyone, welcome to LimitLess Radiocast, episode 85, hanging out with Malachy Friedman. He has over 20 years in combat sports training, competing, doing it all. He's a third-degree black belt, owner and lead instructor of Black Label Martial Arts in Charleston, South Carolina. Amazing instructionals. We have some great organic conversations, so sit back, relax, turn that volume up, and enjoy the show. We'd also like to thank all our friends who help and support Chad and I do this show each and every week. Magic City Brewing Company, located in Akron, Ohio. LimitLess Tape, M&H Beans, Gateway Dental Care, Lashley Nutrition, Supplements and Supplies, Thomas Webb from DeHoff Realtors, Lanky Fight Gear, Red Tail Tattoo Company, Kandray Law, LLC, and last but not least, James Klingerman's BJJ Foundation. Check them out for amazing BJJ techniques, help, and instructionals. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. So Chad and I are hanging out with Malachy Friedman. He has over 20 years experience in BJJ. He, and amongst many, he's coached professional athletes, as in professional combat sports in MMA, jiu-jitsu. He is a third-degree black belt. He owns Black Label Martial Arts, I believe, in Charleston, South Carolina, and he has some of the most amazing instructionals that you can possibly see out there. Obviously, we'll get you guys the handles if you don't know him and you haven't heard about him or anything, which I think you have. And he also, as I came across, has some of the greatest names for instructionals that I've ever seen out of anyone that I've ever seen that does jiu-jitsu. So, Malachy, thanks so much, man, for hanging out with us. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And awesome. Thank you.
I was looking yesterday at some of your stuff, and I saw the Breaking Bad one of the picture, and I was like, wait a minute. And then I started looking through all of them, and I'm like, all right, so that's, is this how you got the nickname Mad Scientist or Mad Science? Yeah.
Well, my coach, Ricardo Laborio, we always called, like, when we got together, it was called the lab, you know?
Oh, right on.
Or we call it the, you know, not the lab, but the Laborio, you know, like.
Oh, yeah.
Like
a little bit of, a little ring with his name too. Yeah.
And then just Lebo would, you know, we always called that the lab, and we were always in the lab about different things. Like, oh, yeah, you want to go to the lab? This would be on a weekend or something like that. And because, you know, he was important. He was a already very busy guy. So it's not like he was teaching classes, you know, he didn't have a set, especially at American Top Team, he didn't have like a set class he was teaching, but he would give you a phone call and he'd like want to check out jiu-jitsu with you, you know, just like, hey, let's go over some stuff, let's play around, let's see what happens. And so we'd always, you know, like come up with different things. And then over the time, Laborio would just constantly, like every time your coach introduces you or you bring him in to do something, or, you know, like I go down and fly down for something for me. He's like, oh, this is the mad scientist of jiu-jitsu. You guys are really special. You know, so I was just like, well, you know what? Just let it stick. Let's just stay with it, you know? And I always liked especially since the Breaking Bad stuff came out, I was like, okay, I'll keep that angle. Hopefully I don't have to change it.
yeah, for sure.
It's like great. It's like where you like you're a wrestler, all of a sudden you've been the mad scientist, then you have to be like Stone Cold Steve Austin.
right. Wait a minute. Like what? No, like, I don't think it's going to change. Your stuff speaks for itself, though, too. Like I was watching a lot of the stuff that you do, and I'm thinking, man, I got to know. Like, do you sit down and just watch moves and then go, can I do this a little bit differently?
Yeah, I do a lot. Like, so when I'm trying to create something, sometimes it happens by itself, but like I've had all these different kinds of surgeries. So sometimes I'm just not healthy enough to train.
Okay.
So like I have 3 spine surgeries, you know?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Man. Well, I'm glad you're upright and moving and grooving and still being able to train in BJJ and many other things.
Yeah, things are getting better. It's good. It's like weird. I'm starting to lift, and those muscles are kind of like starting to guard me a little bit more.
Good.
So
good. Okay.
It should be. Hopefully, things will be moving soon. But I do a lot of like I'll think of deep half guard, and I'll just think about the position, and I'll think about where I am. And I'll think about what kind of sweeps can happen here. And I'll just sit there and just try to think about stuff. And sometimes things will like don't work because like the way that your brain thinks of like the way your body can move or how long your body is. Like I was like, oh, this Heisengard position, I think I have a lockdown, but there was no way on God's green earth I was getting a lockdown from the Heisengard,
Okay.
from my technique. So it's like you think of different things. That's how I thought of the um the deep half guard, where I go to deep half guard and I explode out of it. Like it's one of my recent things on my Instagram. And I thought about it for a while and I was just like, why can't I just take my arm out that way and roll through? And I
And
just thought about it a bunch, and thank God that sleep didn't take all my memory from me.
sure.
Sometimes it happens. You're like, you've been thinking about it, you're like, okay, that's good. And you wake up and you're like, what was that? You're like, you can't even remember where it started.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a lot of positional thinking and
Which is
trying things out.
that deep. So you have I think it's pretty new too. It's a deep half and you're under,
Yeah.
and you're doing it in no gi, and I predominantly do gi. But I was like, man, this would work because I've been working on deep half as of late. I became a blue belt this summer, and I was like, oh, I really like it. I'm a older, bigger guy, so I'm like, okay, get in here and get those sweeps down. But then it was something just totally different where you like rotated, then came right back up, and you were right on top of them. And I'm like, whoa! I watched it probably 20 times because I'm like. I think I can do that in a gi. I don't think that matters.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. I sent that video to I have 4 guys that play deep half really well. And I sent them that video and they're like, yeah, we gotta work on this.
It's slick, man. It's very slick.
So if the thing for me, like, because Instagram's about algorithms and it's about these different things, and we're all trying to sell ourselves to a degree on there.
Sure, right.
Like business. So if something can be done in no-gi, I do it in no-gi. So it's like if it requires no grips, that's where I'll get the no-gi grip.
Sure.
Because you can't, if you just do gi, you'll have nothing but gi players. And no-gi guys will like wonder, can this be done in the gi?
Right.
Can you do this without gi? It's like,
sure.
Yeah, dude, I didn't
you didn't grab nothing
at all.
Yeah.
But so like if you do a kimura or something like that doesn't have anything to do with the grip, I try to just take my gi. Like you'll see me with gi top bottoms on all the time because that's me going, okay, me showed it no gi. I just take the gi top off. And
nice. Okay. And many of even a couple, you have a recent one that's on there where you just have a rash guard on and your gi bottoms are on and you're like going into something there on the, a technique or whatnot. So that's what made me.
If I can film it no gi, I'll film it no gi because I have less no gi followers.
Sure.
Makes sense.
Get more.
Yeah.
Did
you imagine that at this point? So you have more than 20 years in of doing BJJ. Let's say, I call it BJJ still instead of jujitsu, and then some people are like, "Oh, jujitsu." So whatever. Either way, here,
whatever it is.
Yeah. Did you ever imagine like it would be what it is now, like on the internet constantly, or? Yeah, like, hey, you're doing all these techniques and you're really breaking it down. And I get it. Like, we're trying to get people to funnel to see what you're doing. You have great, amazing techniques. The mad scientist, obviously. But do you think about that? Do you ever sit down and go, man, I never thought I would be doing this?
I didn't think I'd be doing the internet. That's a big thing. I just didn't. I didn't take a lot of like the crazy thing is that for the first 12 years. I didn't take any pictures with anybody.
Okay.
I was in a lot of big rooms, and I was at Extreme Couture or not Extreme Couture, Extreme Science Training Center when I was fighting MMA. I was out in Oregon when I was fighting MMA, and I was with Evan Tanner. I don't know if you guys know him, but he's
for sure,
middleweight champion.
Yep.
Who passed away. And I have photos with him and just different things like that. But a lot of photos, I didn't take group photos, or I never said, "Oh, let's get a picture," because your phone didn't have a camera.
It didn't have cameras on
the
them, right?
Shittiest camera, right? And then also, I always thought like, well, I'm not going to ask anybody for a photo because I'm going to be so great that one day I'll get all the photos I need because people will be wanting to take photos with me. Like that's the weird, stupid kid mind frame that I had. That like going through this is like
Sure.
act like you're act like you've been in the business, you know, and now everything is so reliant on do you have a picture of it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So did you do it when you were training with him? Did you get a picture? Like, where's the picture of this? Where's the video? It's just so, like your story carries a little bit less weight without the pictures of the time frame that you were doing. But training pictures were just seemed stupid to me. Like, I'm going to take a picture with somebody that I'm training with.
Right.
Like mainly I took pictures for MySpace, and MySpace was like, and like nobody wanted like training videos or whatever. At least when I was thinking, it was just like headshots, and it was like you and your cat.
Right. No one. We all had MySpace. Well, so there's some people out there listening right now are like, "What's MySpace?" But there are us who know what MySpace is, and yes, you're 100% right, man. Like it was all headshots. It was if you did anything, if you ever put pictures on at all, you know what I mean. Like it was very rudimentary. It was not.
And listen, guys, MySpace was Facebook without all the drama.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. 100%. Yes.
There was zero political bullshit. There was zero religious bullshit.
Yep.
And people just, I don't know. It was a different, like how that
time, man,
was created.
Yeah. And you could do a lot cooler stuff with it too. Remember having videos on your page and songs and
you go in and music. Dude.
Yeah.
No rights matter.
Your own page.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It was your own. There was no rules really at that time. There wasn't to do that stuff. But you didn't have those down the rabbit hole arguments or or trolls and haters and stuff. It's like people got better things to do. Like, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? Like, and it is what it is. And I stay out of it. And Chad and I have talked about it before. Like, we try to stay out as much as we can in terms. I'm sure you get people all the time because you post a lot of technique videos and a lot of stuff. I'm sure there are people that have said things in your time of doing that. Like,
oh man, I've posted on Reddit before. So
Reddit.
Yes, right.
I've oh my good God, dude. The Reddit BJJ group has to be nothing but blue belts that quit.
That's awesome.
And it's just a bunch of guys in there that like are pissed off and be like, that would never work on me. And they haven't trained in 6 years.
It's amazing that is still a mentality. Even today, when you read stuff and people are like, oh, that would never work. And I'm like, what world do you live in? Like, you live on the couch and do nothing. You live at home with your parents still in the basement. Like, what, really? Like, or it is someone that hasn't trained forever and they did the very minimal to do whatever. It's amazing to me. Being even, I still consider myself green. I still very am green. I'm 3 years in here almost. 3 years will be February 11th for me. Yeah. But it's still blows my mind. And I think it's just the mentality of being older, different mindset of that stuff. But I think of you and Chad, like you guys started a long time ago, and we've talked about this on the show before. Like you had you didn't have DVDs, you had VHS and magazines and dub stuff in order to learn. Did someone introduce you to like combat sports? Did they like, hey, Malachy, come on, man, we're going to go do this. And then you just fell in love with it.
So I was 18-ish. And I lived in a house with two other guys, and we would party all the time, just go out, drink, party. The house, we destroyed that house. I don't know why they would rent us a house. That was terrible. I mean, let us rent a house. And we would get really, really drunk and wrestle in the front yard.
Nice.
Like, there was no we had no neighbors. Like our neighbors were right next to us. We just acted like neighbors like they weren't trying to get sleep or anything. It was like 1 or 2 in the morning, and we're like throwing each other around. And
you guys made the Neighbors movie before it was made.
Yeah, we had and there were just some awesome moments. Like, I can just remember like jiu-jitsu was awesome because it got started there. But I also remember like wrestling guys that just like flipping them over, just insane crap that probably would have broken our necks at any other time.
Sure.
But my friend Jason Gregory, he was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and every single time I went to do something with him, he would like yoke me up with like a guillotine triangle. He also wrestled, so that was another thing.
Okay, yeah.
A wrestler and a blue belt. And at some point I was just like, I didn't get mad at it. Like I wanted to beat him, but
Sure.
I didn't get like mad at it to where I didn't want to like wrestle with him anymore. So there's like somewhere we have videos. I don't know where they are, but a very, very skinny 18-year-old me with t-shirts tied around my knees from like the rug burn.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And we're wrestling upstairs, like in like a on the floor of the house, like upstairs. Like he's just choking me, and like I'm just losing. But like, and he was recording it. I don't know why he was recording. He was recording it for, I guess, to see him get better or just to see him destroy me. And that was pretty much it. And then I took I made the step to go to the gym that he went to. The gym he went to, the guys weren't really, I mean, they cared about jiu-jitsu, but they didn't really care about it. Like, it was all kind of like, well, whatever anybody wants to do. And the guy running it was just, whatever, dude. And so then I ended up moving. Then I ended up wanting to do MMA. That was like the big thing. I was like, let me do MMA.
Right. Okay.
And so I ended up going to living in a gym, like 4 hours away. I lived in like the upstairs of a gym. And then that didn't work out forever. And I ended up moving to Oregon. So my main goal was always MMA. It's just every time I went to go to be a striker, to do anything, I was getting taken down. And I had to learn jiu-jitsu. That was just it. Like you have to learn jiu-jitsu because every single person that you're sparring is now dumping you on your butt and you're playing guard. So you got really good at playing guard, and you started working with guys that were good at jiu-jitsu, and you started practicing it that way. So I guess I didn't start with the like formal jiu-jitsu, like introduction.
Sure.
I did jiu-jitsu a little bit with the guys that just did jiu-jitsu, but then I did a ton of MMA. And
I think that's very common though.
With MMA, yeah.
When you say too, Chad, and Malachy, I don't mean to cut you off. We've talked about this, but I think it was very common for guys like in your era to start off with
in that era. I would say
just like it was kind of a mixed bag before going, oh, we really need to hone every skill to be very successful at MMA, not just BJJ, but you know what I mean, like everything.
Right. Yeah. I mean, now I force all my wannabe MMA fighters to do jiu-jitsu, to do Muay Thai, to do this, but we just didn't have it like that. It was just like whoever was the best in the gym was teaching you something that day.
Sure.
And whether it be like wrestling or whether it was jiu-jitsu or whether it was striking, you were just exposed to all those elements, and you figured out what was your niche, how you were gonna play your game that day, or whoever's going to beat the crap out of you. And so I ended up just really, really, really liking jiu-jitsu. And studying fights and studying. And then at some point, there was something on the internet before YouTube. There was a website called Subfighter.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, this guy passed away. He fought Andre Galvao, almost beat him. When he was fighting in Showtime, I want to say, like, maybe it wasn't Showtime, maybe it was Elite XC, something around those
Strike Force, one of those.
Yeah, like that. And he ended up, I mean, he had a website, and I ended up like spending, I guess, like $8 a month on it. And there was some really, really good stuff on it, and I was able to really study that stuff. I was already studying like fights a ton, but after watching that stuff was like, that was the first instructionals that I think were available that were like no gi,
Sure.
and
Available to like the
I grew up
public,
a lot
like
off that.
for people to learn. Yeah. And honestly, I mean, we talk about it, because I mean, a lot of people, Chad and I have, a karate background, like a lot of people in, United States started karate when they were young or whatever, and then it evolved into, I just didn't start BJJ until I was 42 years old. I was like, oh, I'm missing the greatest martial art in the entire world. Awesome. Let me find a gym. And then I found a gym, which that brings me back to ask you this. You were talking about like the gym then that you went to, and it was, kind of a mix of everything, and it was whatever was happening. How, in your opinion, and I love to get people's opinion on this, how important is that now for people to fall into a gym that is extremely comfortable? The atmosphere is really good. It's a big thing now, right? Because we have so many hobbyists versus professionals doing it as well.
I think with the culture, it depends. I mean, I know that the sport, like if you let the sport minded people take over, they will, right? Because those guys are usually type A attitudes, or they're followers. Like, there's a type A somewhere,
Sure,
and there's a bunch of followers, but they'll take their shirts off in the while rolling or while just like sitting out, and like that's back in the day that was completely normal to not have a shirt on. But like going through it and having some good coach. I wouldn't even say coach. Like, so Lebo was a good coach, good advisors. Whereas like, hey, like, like at ATT, when we were at ATT, all the fighters had to wear shirts on when it was hours from like 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night. You couldn't walk around with your shirt off.
Okay.
And that pissed a lot of fighters off. I mean, because like they would always be like yelled at, and like a shirt would be thrown at them, and they're like, oh, like what's the big deal? But it makes a big difference. And I did the same thing in my gym. I was just like, hey guys, keep your shirts on. And that's like one thing out of many that probably subdue the testosterone of like somebody wanting it to be a fight gym.
Sure. Okay.
Because, like,
I love this. I've never heard this before.
If like, I don't want to, like, my gym, I want there to be where guys can get really, really good at beating people up. And if they want to, they can do it for money. And then I got a place where I want those same people, not those same people to be able to train with hobbyists, and for those people to bring those people along and to understand that the hobbyists are getting the same level of jiu-jitsu instruction that the pros are getting. And that's where I think I tell them a lot. I say, hey, so that there's going to be guys that are like, take this very, very seriously. I said, but you're going to be in the same class as them. You don't have to take it as far as them, but that at least lets you know that you're getting the same, look, you're getting the same attention in jiu-jitsu or boxing or MMA that anybody else would be getting, that would be competing. So that means that you're at a competitive level. So everything stays new, modern. Like we can't stay with the old mindset of something like very, very basic or just doesn't have the same the words in my head. Just doesn't have the same, like, you're not learning bullshit jiu-jitsu. You're not learning. You're learning what my fighters would learn so that they could win a fight in 2023.
Yep.
Yeah. Which, I mean, Chad, that's.
I think we shoot it more like a business now, right? I mean, not that it wasn't before, but we're just, or maybe not business, but professional. We're a lot more professional about things than we were, like you said, when we were coming up. Just kind of a free for all, right? We didn't care if you had a shirt on or not, or, that's why it doesn't happen at our gym that much, Terry, every night. Cause I'm always telling a guy, put your shirt on. Mr. Heineman, who started our gym, he passed away years ago, but, he was big into the MMA scene. And if a guy came in or took his shirt off, same thing. He'd yell at him, put your shirt on. If it's, there's moms here, there's young kids doing whatever, be respectful, be classy.
We classed up the.
I mean,
see, you guys classed up combat sports. See what happened? I mean, which is good. I'm joking, everybody out there.
You look up Craig Jones. I mean, Craig Jones's gym is run highly on. You can tell that there's past leaders there. You can tell that
for sure.
And you can tell that the way that they're running their gym has nothing to do with the members in the gym. It has everything to do with. It has everything to do with those guys want to win the ADCC championships. They want as much money as they can get out of it, and it's a really go hard gym. I don't think, unless you're Craig Jones, Nick Rod, and Nikki Ryan, that you're going to ever be able to have a gym like that and stay open.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
It won't be accepted. Right. Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, and then everyone going to those gyms, I mean, that's what they're expecting though, right?
Like, you have to.
I mean, they're expecting to go there and go hard all the time, which, we can get into that. I mean, obviously, you talked about being injured, your back and stuff like that. I mean, this is a hard thing to do. I tell people all the time, like we promote it. I want everyone to do it, but it is very hard on your body. You got to be smart, and some of the stuff that you see in those specific gyms, which I love. I want those guys to be professional and do as much as they can in the sport that they are and make it grow, because it's only making it better for guys like myself. Like those guys inspire me just because of who they are and what they're doing. I get it. I'm not against them or anything, but I would never want to go into a gym and go hard all the time because I'm too daggone old, But
well, I mean, if I could, I'd probably go back to that gym. I go back to that time where I go hard, no shirt, just try to murder people all the time. But there's not that many people that can do that. There's just not that many people that can keep that up. There's not that many people that at some point are going to give up and not like it because it's just too damn much.
Right.
And that's the truth. It's either you're 100% like you don't care what happens to you. You're just like, you want to train hard. It doesn't matter. The injuries don't matter until something really stops you. Because there's at some point something will, like, no matter what you do, something will really, really stop you. Something will pop and you can't move and you can't tape it up and you can't bandage it. But like, if you're going to have people go into your gym, so I trained in those kind of gyms.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Like ATT was, like when you're training for a fight, that's the kind of environment you're going with. But at some, like, regular human beings want to be like that, but not completely that every single day, where that's nothing nonstop, hitting your head against the wall 1,000 times a day. It's just not what they want. And you're not going to keep people signed up. Those people are going to go find something else that's better for them. It's like you're not going to be able to survive having a gym,
right?
In that kind of idea.
From the business side of it, you would never survive. Like, it would be impossible. No. Like, no one would come. They just eventually. I mean, you weed yourself out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, and I think that mentality that goes hard all the time at at a young age justifies getting hurt by, like, well, I'm training hard, I should be, you know what I mean? Like, you hear that a lot too. It's like, no, that's not the smart way to think about it.
Malachy, you've seen
I don't know the smart way. I fucked it up. I fucked myself up real good.
But now, like now that evolution of it. Yeah.
Yes,
like
that's what I mean.
From
now.
then till now. Yeah. Like,
you didn't,
those guys, like, you've trained fighters, you've been in corners, you've cornered guys, you've been in UFC corners, and you've trained the best of the best. We talked about, your great friend, Evan Tanner, amazing fighter. Guys now, even from then to now, saying they specifically don't train. There are camps, and they specifically have training regiments that they don't train as hard. And people out there, if you're listening to the show, you understand this. When I say train, you're not beating each other up. Training hard, yes. Go lift, exercise, cardio. That's a different story. You could beat yourself till you can't stand. That's totally different than it is getting physically beat up. You know what I mean? That has changed drastically, like the physical part of it, from striking, hitting, jujitsu, all of it. That is evolved.
we've gotten somewhat smarter. We didn't understand at that point what was going to happen to ourselves. Like
Sure.
we just knew that like everybody was somewhat healthy at that time and everybody was somewhat of an athlete. And so if you weren't an athlete, there's no way you were in that room. You weren't like in that room,
Sure.
like hoping that to lose 20 pounds and fight. Like
right.
It wasn't like you weren't going to have like a comeback story or anything like that. If you weren't an athlete, you weren't fighting because people were going to just elbow the shit out of you and throw you around it, and you weren't going to make it. You weren't going to get those 20 pounds off safely. So yeah, I mean, we thank God that there's been a little bit of like common sense now, like where we're like, hey, you need breaks. Hey, if you're injured, let's stay off it. Hey, like there's just back then there was no like saying like, hey, my knee's hurting right now. Can you stay away from it? There just wasn't.
Right. Yeah.
And
sure. Yeah. Hey, it's a little, my knee's a little dodgy. All right, man. Cool. I'll stay off there. Now, before it was,
they were going to attack that.
We're going to attack that knee now. Right.
I think the gym that I was in at some point so like I'll go over the two different, again, this is getting more into MMA rather than jiu-jitsu.
That's why I said, man, and we talk about everything on the show. We're going to bring up the fact that you two have glorious beards, but we'll get to that. Go ahead, man.
Well, so the thing is that at one gym that I was at, I think where I got most of my training was that everybody fucking hated each other there. Like we didn't really talk about it, that we hated each other, but like there was a good amount of like dislike between each other. Like
that's got to be when
I was working with. Yeah, I mean, it was just like they knew I was going to submit them. They knew I was going to submit them. They knew I was going to try to triangle them. They knew that was going to happen every single time, and they tried to ground and pound my face off before that happened. And I think and like we didn't really have there wasn't like a happy team like where we played with each other or anything like that. It was just like wanting to win and the person that was annoying, like, so the jiu-jitsu guys are the most annoying, because they're cheating with submissions. It's like right. they're beating you up, like they're punching you, they're taking you down, they're beating you up on the ground, and you submit them. That's not fair. Like that's not really like that didn't cause me any pain. Like, so they're like, unless it would have killed them,
sure.
If you don't let go. And then like with ATT, people were and at the time it was messed up because Laborio wasn't, the time I was there, Laborio's daughter was being born and she had an issue where her skull was closing wrong and it cut off a bunch of nerves.
Oh my. Okay.
So that she became blind. She also so he left. He didn't leave, but he left being on the mats where he was always at, and it became like the Wild West. And if you talk to any of the guys that were there during the time frame, it was that everybody was trying to hurt everybody else to take the spot of somebody else. So if let's say I have a UFC fight, right? And it goes, okay, you have a UFC fight and your schedule, your 155, your name was up on the board, right? And I truly believe that other guys at 155 or whatever, they were trying to injure you off the card to get onto the card. Because who are they going to call? Like, so ATT was such a huge machine. So it was like, hey, so-and-so is out. I got this guy at 155. This is his record. Would you like this as a replacement? And guys guys that hurt other guys got a replacement deal into bigger shows.
Oh, man.
And it's so a cutthroat world. Just constantly, dude, tell me about this.
For sure. Definitely.
My wife is mad at me because I didn't connect our new Wi-Fi.
It's all good, dude. Don't worry about it. Chad and I were just trying to remember where you were and what you were talking about. You were talking
about cutthroat. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. Sweet. cutthroat gyms or cutthroat time. MMA used to be cutthroat, and actually, you know what? Is it still cutthroat today?
I mean, I wouldn't say now. I would say like, so I want fighters that are going to make my other fighters better, you know?
Sure. Right.
And you'll get, I mean, it's of course a push and pull because you got guys that want more attention. They want the coach's attention, you know? And so the better you do, the more attention you get from coach. You know, if you're just there as a sparring partner and you're not really doing incredible things other than being somebody else's punching bag, you're going to get less attention for the most part. I mean, that's not completely true, but you get less of the positive attention. And I don't think anything could ever go back to what that was. That was a person that could not. There was people there that could not control other human beings that they should have been able to control. Like if you're a coach, you should be able to control your fighters. They let people go. They let some guys show up so late to practice that they were 2 or 3 rounds late, and they would come in fresh to rounds. Like, you know, after 3 or 4, you know, usually you're doing 3, 4, 5 rounds.
Sure.
These guys would show up fresh, and so you would have to deal with those guys who wanted to be fresh as hell sparring with you, or you had to deal with guys that were just aggressively violent nature. You know, I mean, there's some guys that are just violent human beings
in general,
and beyond MMA violent. You know, like these are the kind of guys that you probably would hire to be, you know, like people, what's it called when people get money?
Hitman. Like a hitman,
yeah.
Like a hitman,
shark, like
a loan shark,
hitman,
like I know what you mean, like
a loan shark.
Yeah, like he would, like a bookie would get, like a guy to go collector, stuff
that
like
would be
that.
the guy. Yeah,
pay him
and be talking with like an English accent and holding the guy upside down and fingers and shit. You know, like so there's generally a lot of people that were doing really foul stuff. People were getting hurt. People had to spar. I mean, I was a 55er and I was sparring with 205ers.
Wow.
205ers that most people would remember, and they would think that person was fucking insane. And you're like, yeah, I sparred him. They're like, how often? And you're like, a lot. Way more than a 55er ever should have.
You're like, I should have never been doing this.
Yeah, I'll mention one guy because I think he was actually, I mean, he was a crazy person, but I don't think he was that he didn't like he realized his size. So I sparred with Thiago Silva a good bit.
Oh yeah, he's a big boy.
If you remember Thiago Silva? He was the one that like came up and like cut thing.
Yeah,
right. And this is like when he's like, so I'm sparring him, but I would say that out of the guys, there were some guys that did not treat me like a 55er and treated me like it was like a fist fight every time. But I would say like with Thiago Silva, like I could tell he was holding back on a good amount of power that he was throwing. So I can drop that name by saying that. But on top of that, he was as controlled as he could be in that time era.
Gotcha.
Sure.
So
out of curiosity, because he was a good fighter, very good and very good cage fighter, very technical. And do you think were guys like himself better because they were more controlled versus a straight, I don't want to say savage, because I believe anyone that's doing combat sports is a savage in their own right. But does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, I don't know. So maybe I'm giving too much credit for the word controlled. I'm giving his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
His striking was just, man, I don't know if it was good to tell you the truth because he just blew through everybody he touched. But yeah, I think guys that could beat you in ways that didn't take extreme amount of violence are by far the people that are going to get much further ahead in their fight career.
Sure.
Because if you need to meet somebody with extreme violence, then you are at some point you're going to find somebody that can meet you a little bit harder, and
Sure.
that like Vanderlei was the toughest guy on earth forever.
Right.
It's like, and I believe maybe if he had kept being able to do HGH and steroids like he was doing, he may still have been that guy until he retired.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't go from fighting Mark Hunt, right, at a catch weight, like where Mark Hunt's fighting you, and like somehow you
Right.
survive that fight,
Right.
and you fight what he fought Mirko Krokop too.
Yeah.
Like
Yes, for sure.
in an open weight Grand Prix. I mean, you don't
Yeah.
fight those human beings and then like get knocked out by Quentin Rampage Jackson.
Yeah.
And I just don't see it happening. I just feel like maybe Quentin was much cleaner at the time. I'm not going to say completely clean, but maybe he was cleaner than. And now when things were a little bit more even, Quentin had his number. But being a violent brute can take you very far until you meet a more violent brute.
Yeah. Which is life in general. I mean, it's very much, I mean, jiu-jitsu is the same exact way. Like, well, I guess it's not, because if you're technical, you could be very good, but unless you meet someone that's extremely technical, jiu-jitsu does kind of work differently that way. Like, you could take on a bigger guy, but strength is still a good part of jiu-jitsu as well. It can be, but that's why we have weight classes.
Yeah. Right.
There's that fine line there's that fine line on, I tell I'm a smaller guy, I'm 150 pounds. I'm long, but not very big. And I always tell, blue belts and, 4-stripe white belts and those type of guys, like, your strength isn't going to you're not going to outstrength my technique, right? There's a fine line to when that starts working against you or for you,
Right. I believe that completely. I mean,
yeah.
The only time I've ever really been like, my main goal is my main thing is saying like, any of my blue belts should beat any sized or athletically developed athlete or person who they should be able to beat them. Right. So if they've never wrestled, if they've never done anything with a grappling art, but I trained with, so like down in Florida, we would get a lot of like, not celebrities, but guys that were very, very good at different things. So like I went with a guy that was like with the All Blacks, I think, right? The rugby team.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm showing a technique on him and I'm like, yeah, this will work regardless of size or strength, and like I went to put the armbar on him and he starts fighting out of it. I'm like, oh, I'm going to finish. I'll just show him right here. It took me about 2.5 minutes to submit him with something else. Like I wasn't the armbar because that was how athletic that guy was. And I was like, holy shit, this is trouble. This is also in front of like 20 other new students. And he's just like he's fighting like hell. And I'm like, I'm not going to finish this armbar. I got to finish something else. So like I changed it into like a rolling into something else. But that was probably the only time in my life where I went with somebody that was like so athletic and so like hard nosed, but without any jiu-jitsu knowledge. That took me like that. I was like, am I going to be able to submit this guy or stop this guy from effing me up in front of a whole bunch of students?
Sure.
I'm trying to demonstrate a technique on.
Great.
So that was probably the only time ever that I was like just left in shock. And I was just like, oh crap, this is going to be rough.
Yeah. The nice thing is it's kind of like proving it, even though you said, hey, I'm going to submit him in an armbar, but you proved a point that technique, as Chad just alluded to, is going to probably outperform anyone on the street. You know what I mean? Like people are like, oh, I'm going to hit you so hard and knock you out. It's like, you better hope you hit me and knock me out. Because if that's all you know, I'm going to destroy you. Like, I don't care how strong you are and how big you are.
The example that I've given several times on the show and to my students is, obviously you want your jiu-jitsu to be good and work on every level when you're a black belt, right? But like,
Right.
Being a smaller person, I want my jujitsu to work on the 220-pound white belt that signs up, because if I have to use it, that's probably who it's going to be against, right? It's not going to be against another black belt or a higher rank, probably in a,
Most likely,
in a street,
sure.
in a street situation, or if you get attacked, whatever. So,
I
like
wrote
you
a blog
said,
on this. That's the truth.
yeah,
I wrote a blog. It says, "Hey, you should go with that white belt spaz." That
yeah,
was the name of the blog.
Nice.
And I said, "Hey, if you ever want to know what it feels like to be in a fight, go with the athletic white belt." And I said, if you like, I get dodging the athletic white belt because maybe you could get hurt. So maybe you don't make a habit of just like of showing him what jiu-jitsu is about. But if you can't handle the athletic white belt because he's too spazzy or he freaks out, I'm like, because here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to control him, right? And then you're not going to be able to, he's not going to play jujitsu with you,
no,
right?
No,
He's
he's
not
just going to
going
jump
counter
on
for counter. Right. So like when like you grab an armbar, he's not going to like defend the armbar with a rear naked choke grip and try to get himself back in and roll on top of you and stack.
yeah,
He's not going to do everything you're expecting. So a lot of times jiu-jitsu versus jiu-jitsu is wrong because we're like I go on the moves that I expect my opponent to be able to counter. So like it's almost like a dance where I know that like if I move in this direction, you're going to hip escape. If I try to pass your guard, you're going to move here and post here, and they're just going to stand up. Like
Stack
and then they might just be able to do it. Yeah. And so it's like if you go with a white belt spaz and like you got to calm down. Like when you get the half guard, you got to flatten them out. You got to do the things that actually work because of physics and leverage, right?
Yes,
like put him flat on his back, knee slice cut to mount, hold position, put your chest on top of their head so they don't have like the neck mobility to turn and flip you around. That's what you're going to have to do. And that's what will be a street fight. So if you ever get with an athletic guy, that's what the street fight's going to be like. And your jiu-jitsu is not going to be like moving to S mount. You're not going to go to S mount today.
right.
You know what I mean? You're going to be in a very, very basic guard position. You're going to go from basic guard pass to or sweep. Everything's going to be basic because that's what works on somebody you don't know what they're going to do next.
Yeah.
I was asked go ahead, Chad.
I was just saying, get really heavy, right? That's when you
heavy, yeah.
I was asked this over the holidays. Being
in half guard,
yeah.
I was asked this over the holidays. Someone was like, "Oh, training Terry trains. I bet he could take anyone in this group right now." And I was like, "You guys, like, knock it off. Like this. It was a get together for work. It's all a bunch of people I work with. Right. I was like, knock it off, right. And someone was like, "Oh, well, if you get hit really hard," and I was like, "Oh, well, I wouldn't let you hit me. Like you would do it, but I'm going to try to take you down instantly, man." And I said, "I'm going to get heavy on top." And they're like, "Well, what move would you do?" I was like, "Probably not much." I was like, "I'd get on top of you and control you." I was like, "I'm not stupid." I was like, "You would not move. I would control you and I might put something into you to where I could get a hold of you, but it wouldn't be like nothing fancy." I was like, I wouldn't be trying to do no jiu-jitsu.
I tell people all the time, people don't realize the biggest things that they're not legal in MMA either, so it's like when I get on, if I'm playing guard, I'm going to kick you in the face, right?
Yeah.
Right. If we're talking fight, right? I'm going to kick you in the face like any reasonable person should. So if you know jiu-jitsu, doesn't mean just close your guard and try to control. If they posture up, kick them in the face. If you're on top, your head weighs about 9 pounds. Drop your head continuously on their eye socket until that sucker's apart.
Yes.
Because the orbital bone breaks pretty easy. So there you go. It's like I don't have to hit you. I don't have to give you space. I can just continually drop my head into your eye socket until that thing can't take anymore.
Smash.
Yeah.
Heavy controlled smash.
Mark Kerr,
Mark Coleman.
Coleman. Those are the guys that are gonna like that said like, all they have to do is slowly drop their head from like 4 or 5 inches constantly into their face. And those guys were messed up.
Yeah.
It's like you can do very, very basic stuff and be extremely violent with it. And so I think people expect it to look like MMA, whereas real jiu-jitsu self-defense takes into account that like punching's great, but these other things can lead to you getting knocked over, turned, or into a punching fight with somebody.
Definitely.
You want to take the best opportunity you have and upkick them the right way the first time and win. And it'd be over.
And the nice thing too is, let's be honest, anyone that's trained, and we've always alluded to, let's say blue belt and above, if we talk, jiu-jitsu, you're much more calmer. You know what I mean? Not that adrenaline's going to flow. Yeah, if it's a real fight or whatever, I get it. But you are much more calmer, much more controlled, much more thinking process. Like, what's going on? What do I need to do? Versus, maybe when you're not trained and it's just two spazzy white belts going crazy at one another. It's the same, like you said. Like, it's the same thing. Like, hey, go with that spazzy white belt if you want to test yourself.
That's why you train so much, to have good reactions.
Yeah.
It's like,
for sure.
That's it. I mean, like, if somebody's trying to pick me up and take me down, I believe with everything in my like, I would bet all my bank account, my body, without thinking about it, would start sprawling.
Oh,
yeah. It's just not going to let you pick me up that way.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So it's just like, maybe you do, maybe you're like you're the biggest person on earth and you just yank me up, but I shouldn't be thinking about sprawling. Like, so where other people are like caught in moments thinking about how do I stop somebody from picking me up, you're thinking about farther things into the future so that you win the fight. Not just the guy trying to pick you up, but you're like, okay, I'm in a fight now. And all of a sudden your body's just sprawling. You're going, okay, I'm in a fight. What do I do? Crossface. You're not, you can think crossface because your hips are allowing you to give you the time to crossface the person. Sure. You're like, okay, what now? Okay, let's take him down. It's like, so all these repetitions you're doing throughout jiu-jitsu for the many, many years, your body's going to hopefully do it all by itself for the most part. And then the small details are going to be, you're going to think about. So you can think ahead. When they say thinking ahead, it's really just your reactions are better than their reactions.
Exactly.
And now your thought processes are open up to think of more and more things to do. Or things that need to be done in order to win.
Sure.
And that's the biggest difference with, I think, white belts, blue belts, purple belts. Like, I tell people all the time, like you've seen me in here grappling with a purple belt and I'm not breathing, like I'm just not breathing at all. I'm having the best day of my life. Like, they're giving me good answers. They're giving me good attacks and stuff like that. But I'm okay. I'm fine. And then all of a sudden, I go with a black belt and nothing really happens in that match, but I'm physically and mentally exhausted. So no, I'm physically exhausted because I'm mentally exhausted.
Right.
That's what they're throwing so many different things at me that I'm trying to keep up with in my mind, that my body is starting to slow down and start to become affected by it. And there may be much less motion. I may have been moving around like crazy with the purple belt, but with the black belt, you see me just moving on a couple different things, but everything is 10 times more laborsome in my mind that I'm having to keep up with, which also affects my body. And so I think, like the people you go, like, you can go with the spazzy white belt and not freak out or not lose all your gas because you're not thinking hard.
Yeah.
Your body's reacting and you're able to go on cruise mode and do the right things. Whereas when you're going with somebody who's their same talent level, those guys always pull everything out of you because your brain is just in constant overload of trying to correct, fix, do, and, add that onto a labor intensive activity. That's what makes people, gas out.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
So I watching professional athletes in our combat sports, when they get into it and they really get after it, you're like, wow, that was a great match. And they put it all on the line, all on the mat. Everything's out there. Right. And exactly what you're talking about, they do that. And you're like, yeah, the guy should be exhausted. Both of them should be completely just done, spent, which is hard to believe. Go ahead.
Look at Gordon Ryan, though.
I was going to say he's an exception to.
No. But sometimes he's so far ahead right? And reactionary stuff, that he's not being challenged mentally. The
Right.
moment he's being challenged mentally, he's gassing a bit. Like, so with Felipe Pena, it was the only time I could really tell that he was gassing a little. Like, I mean, Felipe Pena really gassed, but where Gordon was taking big breaths.
Yeah.
And like, like there was a couple moments in there where Gordon was in trouble with a couple different attacks that Pena had, a couple different 50-50, and like where Pena set up the 50-50 and was beautifully done. And you see him breathing a little bit more, where you see him not doing anything, breathing at all with the other guys, because he's just not being challenged. He's not being challenged with his brain, and that's okay, because that's the athlete that he is. He doesn't have to like be the guy that like is smashing people like with because it's not, the match does not tell him that he has to do that. He's become very, 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 very conservative with his movements.
Sure.
So I mean, but then there's other guys that you see them both exhausted, and you're like, yeah, that was a pretty equal match. I mean, you watch, like, I don't remember the guy who he fought in the finals, but it was like Baby Shark and somebody else.
In ADCC,
yeah, and it was this like going back and forth. I thought the other guy won. It was hard to even tell who won, and like it was like we're down to like a razor thin like referee decision.
Yes,
exactly. On a couple of these, and it's like, man, like what can you say? What else can you say about that? Like, there's nothing you can say other than that guy was 10% better at something,
right?
But maybe not, whatever the referee saw, 10% better in that area. But they're both being threatened constantly, and they're both exhausted because, your brain was challenged, and I really believe that, like, when you don't have to think as much, you don't fatigue, and that's why drilling, and that's why knowing things and being better at technique wise is important, because the technique guy can take a break and kind of let things go on autopilot, and the guy without technique has to always think about what he's doing, and he's going to at some point hit a limit, and he's not going to be able to solve the cube as fast as he thinks he would like to, and he's out of breath before he can do that.
And that is, and personally for me, that is, anytime you start to get technique, that's your whole thing. Chad, you told me, like, he's like, you're overthinking all the time. Like, that's who I am, my mental. But now I'm comfortable to where it's like, I just relax and just kind of let happen, and then kind of react to what's going on, and I'll attack and stuff like that, and I'm fine. But it took me a minute to get there, because I always wanted to think about, like, what's this?
Well, you weren't thinking about just what you were going to do. You were thinking about what they were going to do.
Right. And
like, if I step in,
exhausted.
Yeah. You were tired.
And terrible. I'm still terrible, but
I think probably the best like way of looking at that. And there was like a meme or something that showed each fighter in their first round and in the second round against Khabib. It was like first round, Justin Gaethje, second round, Justin Gaethje. And Khabib was so good at wrestling that when he pressured forward with striking, the guys couldn't do anything but like almost clam up.
Right.
And they're thinking so much. It's not that Khabib beat them up so bad in the first round. Is that the amount of pressure that was on those guys mentally of constantly thinking about defending the takedown, defending the strikes, getting hit in the face. Okay, he's going for a takedown, stop the takedown, and constantly being so worried about being put on the ground because that's where you're probably gonna stay.
Yeah,
is that those guys, that I don't think was ever them being pushed physically into that exhaustion. That was them being pushed mentally into that exhaustion. And when anybody can pressure you like that, so like being a pressure fighter, like being somebody, that's what I teach my MMA fighters. And I teach my jiu-jitsu guys too, is that I like to be guard passing. Guard passing is for me is number one, because a good guy with a good guard is great until you keep knocking at that door. But you have to have better cardio. You have to have better aggression. You have to be constantly doing it. But you can break apart those guys. Those guys will fall apart. And being a pressure fighter is always better than being, like a sometimes a counter fighter is not bad, but being a pressure fighter, you can break people with constant pressure, with constant knocking at the door of trying to pass their guard or constantly trying to take somebody down, and they have to. The person who's countering or trying to stay up is constantly thinking. You're always in. If one moment you're in their face and then it breaks off and you're right back in their face, that's exhausting. That's just so much.
Yeah.
So much to deal with mentally.
You crack that armor. I mean, and Chad, pass guard. Like that's
man.
like
that's
101, man. Like,
man.
Like enter pocket, pass.
It's you'll, like you said, you'll break somebody, like you pass their guard, they recover, you pass again. That's right. Eventually they're gonna be like, shit. They're going to accept it. Eventually, they're going to accept that pass.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't. So, like I said this on another podcast a while back, and I said, like, you're in the kitchen, you have the knife, right? They're running around the counter, the center counter.
Oh yeah.
You've already began committing murder. You have to finish committing murder. Right? It's not like you can go like, I'm out of breath. I'm done. I'm just going to put this knife down. Let's forget about this. It's like, no, you got to kill the guy now.
Right.
Because you've already committed to killing him. So it's almost like the same thing for passing. Is like, once you put that pressure on them, don't ever take that pressure off. Yeah. Because they're like you said, you're going to break them. They're going to fall apart at some point. And they're going to at some point, they're going to let you have side control. But
they're just going to give it up.
Pull out early.
Yeah.
You can't take like almost murder and be like, hey, let's just pretend like I didn't try to kill you today.
Yeah. Man, that was like Chad would be like, step in a pocket and go for it. Like, you're hesitating, like stop hesitating. Like, and I would die. Like, I would even being on top and having that kind of dominant position, not so to speak, if someone had a really good guard, obviously, but that was where I was forever. I would just be like, I'm here. And then I'm done. And then I was swept and I'm like, oh, what the heck? It's gotten better though.
Like once you develop some good balance, some good understanding of guards and like negating them, not necessarily even passing them, but stopping them from being from sweeping or submitting you. Like, so if you can be in De La Riva for 30 minutes and just surf De La Riva, man, at some point they're going to make a mistake. Like, and this is probably my biggest thing with spider guard guys is that, like, so I have a couple buddies that were like huge spider guard guys, and I would let myself be in spider guard forever. And I would like say, you know what, I'm just going to have to deal with this, because a lot of times in spider guard, you can't pass until they make a grip change.
Yeah.
Like, you just can't. So you have to stay on. You have to have combat base. Your legs are burning. They're pulling you around. They're kicking, moving. And then when you see them thinking like, I can't sweep this guy, and they make a chain, they let go of your sleeve to make a collar grip. That's the time to go. That's the time to put everything on them and like blast through the door on them. And it's like, you have to be able to survive their spider guard for a good 6 minutes while they're trying to sweep you. And when they feel like something's not working and they make a small change in grips where you're free, that's the time to go. And, that's
it's
it
awesome.
For a lot of guards is being able to save that. Yeah.
That you say that. So a while back, I was telling Chad, I was watching some old Marcelo stuff, and I was blown away. I never really watched any of his matches or anything. And I just, dove into it, whatever, and started watching him. And every move he made was like a grip change, and it was instantaneously. And it was like, I've never seen this before. Like, I've never seen someone like instantaneously. And then he knew exactly like where to go with every grip, obviously. But go ahead, Chad.
And Marcelo was the definition of, I'm going to attack you and until you can't defend anymore.
Just those matches, I was just blown away. I was just like, and not that, hey, look, man, there's everyone is training BJJ, and especially professional athletes that are doing it on the regular. They're all phenomenal. I love what they're doing for the sport. I want it to keep growing. I want people to do it because I think it's amazing. It gives you something that honestly in the world, nothing gives you, in my opinion. I mean, I could be biased because I am with jiu-jitsu, but it's true, man. Like, it saves people's lives mentally, physically, all that stuff. But seeing people move like that and the switch grips and all that kind of stuff where you get to where it's just like this. And it's just like, wow, like what you alluded to, Malachy. It's like someday when I'm like 100.
I mean, listen, we may never understand it on Marcelo's level.
Right, exactly.
That's the truth.
Sure.
It's like there's certain guys that may always understand it a little bit more than us, but it's good to be close enough. I mean, like most basketball players or most basketball announcers know what they're doing. You know, they know exactly the formations, they know exactly what's going on, they see things, but they can't do it the way that the other guys do it. You know, like you can't do like, so we just may never get to Marcelo's feeling. The feeling Marcelo has is different than the feeling that we'll have. And that's okay because like you said, we're in our 40s. So fuck it.
Keep doing it though. Keep getting out there and getting after it.
I had my competition years of wanting to do stuff. I wish I had more time. But I'm not going to be 40 years old knocking on the door of like Master Worlds. To me, it doesn't, if it's not, and not to knock anybody doing Master Worlds or Master anything.
Sure.
Right? If you know, like I had dreams of being a world champion. I had dreams of being an MMA world champion. I had dreams. It didn't work out. It's the way it is now. And if I can't beat the best guys in the world, I don't necessarily want to fight anybody for best 40-year-old world guy.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
But honestly, you're probably
I can even do it because Zhangji's in my division, to tell you the fucking truth. I mean, like, you know, why is that guy still competing in Master Worlds? Now I got to fight that guy.
Right.
You know, it's like not to even say I could even capture a black belt master title, because now you got guys who were at that age and now they're in their 40s.
Yeah,
they're now competing. Like you got Lovato. Lovato, I think, has been in the Master World. He goes like he'll compete in IBJJF Worlds and then he'll go to Master Worlds.
Yeah, he'll do them all.
Right.
Cyborg, all them guys.
He just fought a great MMA match over the last weekend or something.
I think last
Lovato
weekend.
Jr. Yeah. And he won.
He won. Yeah,
and he looked phenomenal.
And so it's, you know, it's like not that, but you know, there's like a point where you want to beat the best adults in the world, you know, and then you don't stop being an adult because you're 40. So you just, you know, you take things the way you can, and you know, like Marcelo at the time, you know, like I still call him a GOAT, you know what I mean? And the same way that like Jacare and Hodger, you know, like those guys in Tedade. So look, if you have not watched Marcelo, you probably haven't watched much of Tedade.
I've heard Chad talk about him a lot. I've heard his name.
You should definitely watch him.
Definitely type in YouTube and go like, hey, what's up? Spell it. I don't know how you even spell the thing. It's a couple T and a lot of R's and a couple of E's.
Yeah. Just mix them
flips them back and forth till it comes up, right?
But he's the reason why we guys pass the way with the long step pass and you know, all 100%. That stuff is all him.
He's a lot of his guys we don't realize that are his guys. It's like Andre Galvao was his guy. Yeah. Eduardo Tellez was his guy.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of guys that were representing the Tedade team that now are the biggest people in the sport. Yeah. You know, like
I think Drysdale was with him a little bit too. Drysdale back in the day.
Yeah.
Oh, was he? Okay.
I think so.
Freaking figure it out. I mean, like, listen, if you go to Tedade team, it's like, man, I want to say there's a bunch of Alliance guys because Alliance was being formed during that time.
Yep.
But I mean, like his team was probably one of the top like groups that now have modern jiu-jitsu. He was like the creator. He just was a crazy person. He was a drug addict and a crazy guy.
Yeah.
And he ended up kind of falling apart. But those are the guys, you know, you watch Jacare, you know, like how they move, and people are still copying the movements today.
Yeah.
You know,
which is good. I mean, and this is what's awesome about that stuff, though. We have guys like you and Chad that have been around and seen it in your, you know, you talked about earlier, like things didn't work out another way, but you're also giving something that is amazing. You're passing the torch and teaching people the greatest martial art, in our opinion, that you can learn in terms of this. Jiu-jitsu is phenomenal, and you're passing the torch to other people. You're teaching them stuff that maybe they would never see. And I ask these questions all the time. Like Chad and I can have these conversations. Doesn't have to be on a podcast. It's like, oh, have you ever checked this guy out? Or, hey, what about this? Or how does this work? Thank God we have guys like you that can do this, that can teach people and show people like, hey, this is really, this is kind of, and this person taught us, and this person taught us, you know what I mean? So it's awesome, man. I mean, I'm glad it's going the way.
The best thing, man, is like, so you get to share with adults that love it, but also kids. I mean, it's like, I start with kids that are like 3 years old now, and I like,
nice.
And man, just teaching kids how to do like high level. Like I have a whole team of kids that do really, really high level jiu-jitsu, and it's insane to watch. And like, so my days are, of course, for glory on myself, are gone, but they're like, man, I think I could become the best kids coach in the world. That's what I believe. I think that's possible.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's like, you start to think about things like that, and you go, okay, well, that's my next goal. And if you don't hit it, you still land somewhere pretty dang high,
for sure.
So it's like, I'm constantly trying to improve my coaching, put things out, try to make sure that I'm like, create new stuff, create this, that, and then try to put a challenge in front of myself. Like, well, I want to be the authority on kids coaching. You know what I mean? Like, that's something I think I can, like, even though it's a big lofty thing, it's just everybody's in the meantime right now is saying, I want to be the best. I want to be Danaher, right?
Sure. Right.
Like, well, good luck, because it takes, number one, you to be very, very good at jiu-jitsu to get people there. But number two, you need to find people. You need to go through a lot of people that are going to break your heart.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine how many guys went through Danaher's doors that were the Gordon Ryan of that time.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And then didn't make it, or things didn't work out, or they were this guy. It just takes a perfect storm sometimes for the kid to walk in and then change the whole direction of the group as well. Like make everybody else better around him, because he's that good, and he pushes everybody else to want to be better than him in the room. So, you keep growing like that. So, I mean, but as far as kids, I mean, like, you got the art of jiu-jitsu, and they're like, man, they're super deep with their kids team.
Yeah.
And it's like, can you beat that? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, I think so.
Yeah.
Like I know the same shit that they're teaching. It's just, can I deliver it to the same message? How important is hokey shit? Like, and we call it hokey only because it's cheating jujitsu, right? So it's like bypassing, like we would say the bear, like if you taught a kid just berimbolo, back take, rear naked choke, or bow and arrow, if you just taught them that, how many kids would they beat until somebody pushed them into a place that wasn't that? Right. So like, you can just bypass jiu-jitsu in a way of going like, hey, you're going to get really good at guard retention. Okay, you're going to get really good at DeHoff. Hey, you're going to get really good at berimbolo, and hey, now here you're on the back. You're going to finish. And that's like almost every blue belt in the world competing today. It's just like trying to berimbolo everybody to a finish. But then there's going to be a whole lot of like, and then when do you get exposed? That's the big one. Like, when do you get exposed that you don't know anything else? So it's like, do you go that route where they beat everybody for the first 8 years of their life, and then they kind of slow down? Or who is Mika Galvao, AOJ?
No, he's fight sports, I think.
Yeah.
Who's the kid I'm thinking of?
You thinking about Kolabate?
Kolabate is
Tynan Dalpert.
Oh, Tanya, he's AOJ. Yeah, he's AOJ.
Yeah. Okay, so he was from a kid. Right?
Yes.
So he started with him as a kid.
Yep.
So then maybe they're right. Maybe just berimboloing and cheating the world forever is Like, maybe don't show anything else. Don't show don't show mountain escape. Just show Berimbolo.
I don't know, man. Those guys at ADCC, with the top of the top, and even the Open, you saw some amazing jiu-jitsu matches, and you were just like, wow, there's some really good stuff. And I agree with you. Like, there's times when you see stuff and guys just attack the leg right away, and that's it, and that's all they know, and it's just heel hook and it's done, and they don't know how to do anything else. And if the other guy does, then they look stuck, but it doesn't look as bad because they're just still attacking those legs. I'm a match watcher versus instructional stuff because I'm old. And my coach says, watch matches, Terry. So, but you're right, man.
I haven't watched matches in a long time. It's a hard job, man. Watching. I have to watch matches for a living sometimes.
Sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. I felt I got better because I processed things better that way. And then, because I'm older, man. So I wasn't like, hey, let me go try this. And now I will once in a while, like, oh, maybe I'll try something like that deep half thing that I watched many times from you. Right. But that is something where I go, this isn't extremely explosive in my brain to where I'm going, okay, I'm trying to like, split the atom here. Like, I'm like I can figure this out. Some of the other stuff I'm like, okay, Terry, you're too dumb. You can't figure that out right now. Like, just keep doing jujitsu when what Chad's telling you to do.
Yeah, there's so many small details in matches that they're so hard to recreate.
Sure.
If that makes sense. So a lot of things are just so situational. Like, the leg felt like this. So because jiu-jitsu is so nuanced in the fact that you can just do something completely different than you would have expected to do. Mm-hmm. And you can just not make something up, but you go along the principles of jiu-jitsu that you use it to get to somewhere else because you were in that spot. And sometimes you'll never find yourself in that spot again. Or they were in a spot where the pressure felt like this and they did that. And it's like, how the hell can I replicate that? You can't replicate that.
Yeah.
You'd have to understand how hard the person was pushing on bottom, what that hook felt like. You know what I mean? Like, you can try to replicate it, but if they're moving along the principles of jiu-jitsu.
Sure. Yeah. It's like you alluded to earlier in the show. The refs, there's that small 5-10% line where they have to see it and go, hey, he beat you by that much percentage. When the match was amazing, both guys did amazing, but hey, he got you by that much. And yeah.
It's the same thing I feel with a lot of the Instagram reels being big, right? With a lot of people showing different moves, and you try it in the gym on a live opponent, it doesn't work. Well, it's easier to do on a static opponent in that situation than live. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's the thing too.
You got to train it. You got to drill it.
You got to drill it. Yeah.
You got to drill it live, man.
For sure.
I always tell my students that. I tell my students all the time, I'm like, hey, I just showed you something that I don't do. Right? Like, this is not necessarily a part of my game. I said, but if you want this to be a part of your game, you better put it to work, because you're not going to. So if I'm showing Spider Guard this past couple weeks, and I don't play a lot of Spider Guard. My Spider Guard is a transitional guard for me. Like, I'll have attacks from there, but usually I use that to get my Spider Guard to get underneath somebody. Like, I like to play. I like to be underneath my opponent. So anything where it's like inside X, anything like where even if I still have a spider lasso or something, I like to be underneath. Mm-hmm. But so I always use it as transitional. But if you want to learn Spider Guard and be a menace in Spider Guard, you have to drill the shit out of it. It's inevitable. You have one of those things.
Yeah,
it's just not one of those things you're going to be good at.
Yeah, and it's hard to.
Oh, I know this. Yeah,
it's hard. It's, I guess, easier for us that's been in the game a while to say this, but yes, Terry, I end almost every class with saying you guys have to be okay with failure. Mm-hmm. It's okay to fail. You have to try stuff that we're drilling if you want it to work. Because more than any other sport, we have an immediate answer to the question we ask. Does this sweep work? No. What do I do next?
Yeah.
The truth, man. Sure. Friggin'. And like, too many people are going to hold back their jiu-jitsu because they want to win.
That too,
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like they want to win. They're like you have the athletic guy that can beat most of the white belts because he's athletic.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the white belt that can't beat anybody because he's half the size of everybody.
Yeah.
And he has to use jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then once he has to use jiu-jitsu, then the big guy quits 2 years later because the little guy is destroying him. And he's like, I don't get it. Why didn't get any better? So you didn't get any better because you stopped doing jiu-jitsu. You just decided that beating 80% of the white belts was okay for you.
Right.
And that's where you ended up, and that's why you are where you are. That guy's where he is because he got beat by 80% of everybody, and he had to keep trying jiu-jitsu until it worked for him, and now it works for him.
Yeah.
And now 100%. he can smoke you. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
It's hard to lose against people when you can win.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
the hard part. Like I can win this match, but you can't do it without jiu-jitsu. So so you better start scissor sweeping and throwing a lasso and learning how to pass guard and playing jiu-jitsu, because in 2 years your jiu-jitsu is going to suck if you hide it and just like try to go off of 2 moves that you win on.
Yeah. Everyone's going to catch up to you, man. It's
and I feel, what you're saying it kind of about cheating jiu-jitsu I feel like that way a little bit with the leg game getting so popular. I know it's necessary to learn even the offensive part of the leg game so you can know the defense. But a lot of people, instead of passing guard, they'll just jump on a footlock because they can't pass your guard. So does that in turn stunt your jiu-jitsu game? Because you know what I mean? I think it does.
And it depends on who you drop on foot on.
Right.
I mean? You drop on certain people's feet, the match is over for you really quick.
Yeah.
Because not only are they good at stopping you from passing, but they also know what they're doing there.
Right.
And
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, good stuff, man.
Yeah.
We had you solid, brother, for more than an hour. Appreciate your time. Definitely. Why don't you do this? Shout out how anyone can get to you. Always put in the show notes so anyone can get to anything. I know you have a LinkedIn. We're gonna make sure that's on there, your handles, but any sponsors or anything you want to shout out, go ahead.
No, luckily I'm not chained down by the corporate man. No, I just watch my instructionals. Like if you like my stuff on Instagram, I have my own malachyfriedman.com website, and I have a subscription site on there. So if you like that stuff, give that a try. Instructional. I own most of my instructionals, so
nice.
Buy them from me. That helps me out. Just stuff like that. If you enjoy my stuff, give it a shot, because I promise. I'm one of those guys that I've watched a lot of instructionals from people that with big names, and they just show 3 or 4 techniques that isn't very special, and it's like, okay, this, okay, that, and it's like they're living off that. I'm not a world champion, so I have to work a lot fucking harder on each one of my instructionals.
True.
Yeah. It's come check out not a world champion's instructional and come see how hard I have to win you over. So.
I told everyone out there in the beginning of the show, if you guys do not know, he has the greatest names of instructionals I've ever seen because of that reason right there.
And the reason why is because every time when I was a kid, I bought things sometimes not based on anything else other than the name of the CD, or the picture on the CD
on the cover.
Look at that CD, and you're like, that looks awesome. And you brought it home. Yeah, and so I did the same damn thing. I said, you know what? I'm going to make stuff that I would want to buy because of what's on the cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you, brother, for everything that you're doing. Keep doing it. Keep putting the stuff out there and the content. Thank you for giving us the time. Talking
for sure.
We appreciate it greatly, man. And take care, man. If you need anything down the line, let us know. Anything ever you want to talk about, and hey, I need to get this out there, hit us up. Come on the show again. Talk about stuff.
Awesome, man. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, brother.
All right, my man. We'll talk to you later.
Take care, guys.
All right. See you
later.